All right. That's not the right shot. There we go. Welcome to a Knicks Film School emergency live stream, a semi-emergency live stream. It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, coming at you a little after 5 p.m. here on Thursday, September 11th, which is, of course, a day very meaningful for many of us here in the New York area. This is, I would say, a minor emergency live stream, as the Knicks have made a couple signings today. The news broke a few hours ago, or I guess about an hour and a half ago, that they were signing Landry Shamet to their 13th roster spot. I'll get back to the significance of that in a bit. But since that signing was announced by Shams over at ESPN, we have gotten some more news. And that additional news means that for as much as today's emergency live stream was supposed to be about Landry Shamet taking up a roster spot, it is apparently not guaranteed that he is going to take up that roster spot once we actually get to the regular season. Before we do any of that, quick reminder, if you're new here at Knicks Film School, if you've been here for a very long time, either way, be sure to help us out and follow us on all social channels at Knicks Film School, SKOOL. Give us a follow and, of course, set your notifications on YouTube. Follow us on Patreon, or subscribe to our Patreon, I should say, for all kinds of bonus content. And, if you dig what we do here, give us a 5-star rating, write a review, all those nice things. Okay, so let's get the most up-to-date information out, and then we will backtrack and process what everything means. Coming into today, the Knicks were, I believe, the only team in the NBA that had 12 players signed to their roster. Everybody else in the league had at least 13 players. There are definitely teams out there that have 14 players signed to guaranteed contracts, 15 players signed to guaranteed contracts. I'm pretty sure there are a few teams out there that have more than the maximum allotted number of 15 players guaranteed to or signed to guaranteed contracts. The Knicks only had 12. But one thing that we knew about the Knicks going into training camp is that, unlike a lot of other teams out there, they were not going to be able to get up to that number of 15. And the reason they were not going to be able to get up to that number of 15 is because they are very close to the second apron, which they are barred from going over because they used their mid-level exception to sign Gershon Yabusele. There will be a test on all of this later in case anybody is wondering. So we knew that they were going to sign 2 more players, because you need to have at least 14 on the roster for the majority of the season. And we also knew a little bit about which players they were going to sign, because unless there is a trade, and that phrase away in your heads for a few minutes, they only had room to sign 1 player who actually had prior NBA experience, because there are different salary numbers attributed to players, whether they have no NBA experience, 1 year of NBA experience, or 2 or more years of NBA experience. So we knew they were going to be able to sign 1 guy that had played some modicum of NBA basketball before, hence the Ben Simmons rumors that thankfully are now dead. But we knew that the other roster spot, again, without a trade taking place, was going to have to be spent on a player who had not yet played in the NBA. And I'm talking about not played at all. So like Kevin McCullough Jr., I don't know how many minutes he played last year, whatever it was, that already disqualifies him from getting that second spot. So this is all to say we were coming up close to training camp wondering who's going to get this veteran spot. It was announced by Shams earlier today that Landry Shamet had snagged the spot, the veteran spot. After that, and that was confirmed by several Knicks beat reporters, after that, Stephen Bondy reported that the Knicks were signing Garrison Matthews, who I believe most recently was with the Hawks. He's bounced around the league. He's been in the league for a little while, to a training camp deal. And in his initial tweet said that Garrison Matthews, who's much like Landry Shamet, is kind of a 3-point marksman. That when he's out there, that's what he's looking to do, shoot off movement, the whole thing. It was expected that Garrison Matthews would compete for a roster spot, which makes sense because Garrison Matthews, I think, has done enough in the NBA where he's not going to go to a camp situation where he has no chance of competing for a spot. So immediately I saw this, I'm like, do the Knicks have a trade in the works? Because that would be the only way that they'd be able to sign both Shamet and Matthews. And why would Matthews be wasting his time in a situation where he has no chance to be on the team again, unless there's a trade? And then we got some more information, also courtesy of Stefan Bondi, that the Landry Shamet 1-year deal for the veterans minimum is non-guaranteed. So essentially, it seems like we have a situation where both Landry Shamet and Garrison Matthews are in the same boat. They're going to go to Knicks training camp, and they're both on non-guaranteed 1 year. Well, Shamet's on a 1-year veteran minimum deal, but that's not guaranteed. Garrison Matthews, it seems like he is on a training camp contract, which is, I forget, either Exhibit 10 or Exhibit 11, whatever it is. As of now, one of those guys will get the veteran minimum spot. As for the other spot, not that we have any new news on this, but that is still very much up in the air. All we know is that whoever gets it, again, will have never played NBA basketball in their life. I know Ian Begley had a report a few days ago about a 29-year-old guy. The name is escaping me because I don't follow international basketball, but he's apparently pretty good. He's a big man. He's having a really good Euro basket. So, for example, they would be able to sign that player because that player has never played in the NBA and they don't have to worry about draft rights or anything like that. As long as that player was willing to sign for the absolute bare minimum that a player with 0 years of NBA experience can sign for. Because, again, the Knicks are very, very up against the second apron, and they cannot exceed it. Doesn't matter how much they want to exceed it. They can't exceed it this season. The last thing I'll kind of throw in there, and I thought about this again when Bondi tweeted out the Garrison Matthews news, but I had thought about it a few times because, again, what's the first rule of following Knicks basketball? Ian Begley always reports or says less than he knows. And in a few articles over the summer, as Ian was kind of detailing the salary cap situation, which I just went through, he kind of dropped a few times that unless there is a trade, this is the salary cap situation. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I am expecting the Knicks to make a trade, but I will just note that one way that they would be able to get a little bit more wiggle room is if they took an existing player on their roster that was making a little bit more than the minimum salary and shipped that player to a team that would probably be able to just inherit their contract and not send anything back, not send any salary back. If you're looking at the roster, and I don't expect them to do this. First of all, I don't expect them to do this, period. But just for argument's sake, if the Knicks felt like they were in a position where they really wanted some extra veteran depth, and they're like, you know what? We really like both Landry Shamet and Garrison Matthews. Or, and shout out to Ian Begley, who had this in his report that just came out, again, 15, 20 minutes ago. Let's say Malik Beasley's legal issues get resolved. So Beasley, for anybody who doesn't know, is not under like a federal investigation anymore, or was, I guess I shouldn't phrase it that way. He was, the feds decided not to investigate him. That's what I should say. Apparently the league is still investigating him, and that news came out within the last week or so. So let's say the league clears him of all wrongdoing and Malik Beasley decides, hey, I want to go join the Knicks. And again, go read Ian's report that just came out. It's on SNY's website. I interpreted the wording as like the Knicks may have been, wanting to go down that road with Beasley to bring him in, but the continuing legal uncertainty gave them some hesitancy. So let's say that is resolved in the next, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. whatever the situation may be. If the Knicks decided, hey, we feel like it's worth it for us to bring in multiple veteran guys, they could take a lower salary player on their roster and dump them into somebody's cap space. And I am not trying to say that I don't believe in this player. I'm not trying to say that the Knicks don't believe in this player. But just for argument's sake, Pacome Dadier is due to make $2.85 million this season. If they shipped him into somebody else's cap space, they would be able to sign not one, but two veteran minimum players, I believe. I should probably double check the math before I say this, but I'm pretty sure this is the case. And then still be able to get to clear the second apron with a final roster spot going to someone with no NBA experience. Again, as long as that, someone with, let's say, Diawara, the guy that they just took in the end of the second round this year. Again, I'm not suggesting they're going to do that. I'm not suggesting they should do that. But the reason I kind of want to lay all this out is to just emphasize, especially when you're dealing with this front office and you're talking about a front office that has kind of specialized in maneuvering under the margins. Never say never. And don't count them out for maybe holding a trick or two up their sleeve. So that's pretty much everything in terms of the roster situation that I wanted to go over now. Couple other things, and then if anybody has any comments, I know Andrew's here behind the scenes. I don't know if we're gonna have any super chats. If not, maybe if there's a question or something that he wants to get up there, I could take those later. Couple general things. Ben Simmons. So a lot of stuff about Ben Simmons in recent days. I'm sure most Knicks fans are just like, good riddance. The thing with Ben Simmons that never made any sense to me, and this is going to go back to the other thing that I want to say about whether it's Landry or Shamet or Garrison Matthews, and it's also why it makes sense that Ben Simmons allegedly didn't want to come here. If Ben Simmons is going to be with an NBA team this year, and again, it seems like he's not even sure he wants to be with an NBA team this year, my assumption is that Ben Simmons is going to go to a team where he knows that he is going to get in any game that he is healthy. That would be my assumption for a guy who is a former max player, who is a former number one pick in the draft, who is a former All-NBA talent, and who pretty clearly still thinks highly of his abilities. I never for a second, put aside whether it made any sense for Ben Simmons to come and join a backup unit that was going to include at least one of Josh Hart or Mitchell Robinson, and maybe both of Josh Hart or Mitchell Robinson. Put that aside. The notion that Ben Simmons was going to come here and, rack up a few DNP CDs on his basketball reference page, I never bought that. Just like I never bought the notion that Mike Brown was going to go with a 10 deep rotation every game where everybody was healthy. Now, people are often not healthy, and I'm sure Ben Simmons is not going to be healthy, if he does suit up for a team. But now, the Beasley piece of this is the one wild card that would kind of throw what I'm saying and throw it for a loop. And me and Andrew talked about the Beasley situation a few weeks ago. I think Beasley is just the level of player where they would be like, all right, this could get a little messy, but he's so good we can't pass up this opportunity to get this guy on the minimum. Putting that aside, I think if the Knicks have their druthers, they will not want Mike Brown to go into the season facing any sort of pressure like look, you have 10 guys who expect minutes every night, and if those 10 guys don't get minutes every night, you're going to have some unhappy campers, and that might not be an ideal situation for a first-year coach in a new locker room. Or he's not a first-year coach, but first year in this locker room. The nice thing with both Landry Shamet and Garrison Matthews, and why either of those guys I think would be ideal for this roster spot, is that neither of them are the level of NBA player where you're like, oh, Landry Shamet's healthy, we got to get him minutes tonight. Garrison Matthews is healthy, we got to get him minutes tonight. But as we saw from Landry Shamet in the playoffs, And as we've seen, frankly, from Garrison Matthews over the course of his NBA career, or at least it seems like wherever I watch him, they're both guys who, if you need to throw them in there, whether they need to give you 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, or 25 minutes in a pinch, both of those guys could do that. And more than that, both of those guys have games that are tailored to, like, if their stint is going to be 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and they have to come in and be ready to shoot and ready to run around screens and ready to dart all over the court and just make opposing defenses' lives a little bit more miserable because of their presence, they could do that. And they're good enough shooters that both of those guys, doesn't matter if they're only in a short stint. It doesn't matter if they haven't played in five games or 10 games or whatever. The second those guys are on the floor, opposing defenses are going to, like, all right, we got to pay attention to this guy, which is what makes both of them an ideal 10th man, as it were, for a Knicks team that has a very, very solid top 9. And I also think at this point in their career, and this is, again, proven by the fact that Landry Shamet was willing to take a non-guaranteed deal and Garrison Matthews was willing to take a training camp deal. I also don't think either of those guys is going to cause any problems or be offended in the slightest if there is a night, let's say maybe against a lesser team, or maybe it's a back-to-back situation, and, Mike Brown wants to give one or two of his veterans a night off, but instead of Landry Shamet getting rotation minutes, or instead of Garrison Matthews getting rotation minutes, it's, hey, Tyler Kolek, you haven't played in a while. Suit up. We're getting in there tonight. Or, assuming he's still here, Bacome Dadier. We want to see you get some action tonight. Or if Mitchell Robinson is hurt, Ariel Portio, the center rotation is a different thing. We're really talking about Kolek and Dadier here. So again, I think it's an ideal situation. These are exactly the sorts of players that, the Knicks should have been looking at for this spot, as opposed to a Ben Simmons or a Russell Westbrook, who I believe remains unsigned. Although I think the writing's on the wall that he's going to wind up in Sacramento at one point. I think that's about it. There's some other stuff going on. The Knicks just hired an assistant coach, or I guess, is he an assistant coach? Someone, the St. Joe's guy who's going to be in charge of player development. That's something. And I don't really know. You know what? Let's end this, and then I'll get to some super chats. At this point, I think trying to comment on the Knicks coaching situation in terms of the coaching staff that they have assembled, it's kind of a waste of time, because it is very clear to me that they have an idea of what they want this thing to look and feel like. And I'm going to lean on, and I saw Steph Bondi wrote about it. I forget, she was on a podcast, and I apologize, I forget the name of the podcast, but Dawn Staley, of course, the great women's college coach, gave an interview recently in which she talked about the interview process that she went through and with the Knicks job and everything. And there was some stuff in there that got more headlines about how, were Leon Rose and World Wide West prepared to deal with, like, the first female, NBA head coach, and, like, were they caught off guard? I frankly don't care about that stuff. Not that I don't care about it, but, like, it's not relevant to my analysis of this team. What I did find very relevant is that Dawn Staley was very open, talking about how the main thing that they were trying to emphasize to her was this idea of, like, again, collaboration. It has been the buzzword of the offseason. Collaboration with other coaches, collaboration with the front office. And it's just like, again, I've said it since the day he was fired. I said it since before he was fired. It's not, and this is why they did this without having anyone in particular lined up. The most important qualification in the coach that was going to follow Tom Thibodeau was that he was not Tom Thibodeau. And they were in a situation with Tibbs where they were just completely done with his going about things his own way. And it's like when you're dating someone, I know I always make dating analogies when I talk about the Knicks coaching situation. When you're dating someone and it's a person that, is too neat and they're always picking up after you and dusting and whatever else. Actually sounds pretty good. And you break up with that person because you're just sick of it. You're going to go for someone who like, oh, I just left my shit on the floor and this person doesn't care. You're going to always go for the opposite. And I think this is very clear that after the Tibbs experience, the Knicks are going for the opposite. That came through loud and clear in Dawn Staley's comments about what they emphasized with her. And I think it continues to be made clear as they continue to make these additional hires. And if you look at all the hires that they made, most, if not all of them, have some tangential connection to something on the Knicks. Like this guy is a former Nova guy. He has a relationship with Josh Hart. He's from the same, I think, area of Jersey as like Wes and Leon and all those guys. So like, again, there's a connection, but it's not a connection to Mike Brown, who is the head coach. And there is they're trying to create this Voltron with all these different pieces and hope that it comes together. And, we'll see if it does. I hope so. In theory, you put a bunch of bright minds in a room and everybody is rowing in the same direction and everybody's feeling, like, hey, all for one for all. It should work fine. But you know what they say about best laid plans. And the second the pressure gets ratcheted up and the second anybody's maybe feeling a little bit of pressure or a lack of job security, maybe some people start to look out for themselves a little bit. This is where the fact that there isn't built-in inherent trust that has been built up over years and years and years, which is not going to be the case with this coaching staff because these are guys that are kind of thrown together from different parts. So, hopefully it never comes to that. Hopefully they just win a lot of games and everything goes hunky-dory and all that. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay. I think that's it. I think I've managed to do 23 minutes on a non-guaranteed contract and a training camp signing. I think that's probably pretty good. All right. Andrew Claudio is going to put up the super chats here, although this is something that I'm going to maybe start trying to do myself because I'm not a complete invalid. We start with Kevin Danishevsky. Like the signing, Shamet showed he can fill in admirably, and it still gives Dadier a chance to go win that rotation spot. So, Kev, I don't know how many Knicks games I'm going to be making it out to this year, whether at a bar or at MSG. But if at some point we find ourselves in a drinking establishment together, I will bet you right now a beverage of your choice that Pacome Dadier is not going to win a rotation spot. I obviously know nothing about what Mike Brown is thinking. Pacome Dadier can come into camp and be the best freaking player on the floor and average 35 minutes a night. He could be there starting small forward. It could happen. It could absolutely happen. I am not betting on it. And I don't think you're going to bet on it either. Now, the way you phrase it is correct. Gives Dadier a chance to win the rotation spot. The reason why I'm pushing back a little bit is because of what I said earlier. I don't think this is going to be a 10-man rotation. There are some rotations in the NBA where I think you could go 10 deep, but I am looking at this and I'm looking at the 9 guys who are penciled in as rotation players, and I'm looking at least 4 guys who are going to expect to play, I know you sat and done all the math, so I don't need to tell you. 33, 34, 35, whatever number of minutes. Let's lowball. Let's say 32, 33 minutes. And then everybody else is going to expect to play at least 20 plus. You think anyone out of those 9 guys is going to be cool if they're, averaging 16, 17 minutes a night in the middle of December? I don't think so. Now, you could turn around and say, well, screw them. That's not what the priority is. The priority is what's best for the team. But I think this is where Mike Brown, again, being first year on the job, one of his main job descriptions this year is to win over this locker room. And you may say that's not he shouldn't have to worry about that. Well, I think he does. It's a veteran laden locker room. So this is all to say, well, I don't think Dadier is not going to have a chance. I have a tough time seeing anyone, whether it be Dadier, Shamet, Matthews, Kolek, Huck Porty. I have a hard time seeing any of those guys being a guy who's going to play regular minutes every night, absent, some sort of injuries. Okay, let's see if I could do this. Oh my God, Andrew, you never told me it was that easy. Nickhead said, "Let's go Knicks." Hey, absolutely, let's go Knicks indeed. I hope everybody's having a good summer. By the way, I know enthusiasm's starting to build up again for the season, which is cool. We are 12 days away from Media Day. That sounds right. I think September 23rd. Let's go with September 23rd. I think we're 12 days away from Media Day, which is great. And I can't wait for that. We'll do something. We'll do something live on Media Day, whether it makes sense to do it during Media Day, whether it makes sense to do it after Media Day. We'll see, but I'm getting excited for Knicks basketball for sure. All right, let's see what else we got. All right, I think that's it. Andrew, double check me and say, yeah, that's it. Okay, we're done. That was easy. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to another Knicks Film School live stream. Probably our last emergency live stream before training camp opens. Please like this video. Subscribe to the Knicks Film School YouTube channel. Make sure you put on those YouTube alerts, which I didn't know how to do until recently. So anytime we go live, whether it's for a post-game, live stream, for something else, whatever, you get that notification. You tune right in. And also, leave us a nice rating and say some nice things to your friends and whatnot about what we're doing here at Knicks Film School. That is it for me. I will talk to everyone soon. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and peace out.